Do you have questions about public speaking, presenting, communicating? If so, this is the place for you. Hi, I'm TJ Walker. This is the TJ Walker Success Show. We're all about helping you become better at communicating, better at speaking, more comfortable, more confident in your presentation so that you can be more successful in life. You can join me live. We're going to post a link to StreamYard. If you want to come on screen and ask me a question, you can post comments right here. I will read them out loud and share them. Many of you have emailed me questions in advance. I'll be answering those. And we have a special guest expert today. It is none other than the TJ Walker clone. My digital clone will be co-hosting today and answering questions as well. And we may do a little competition, maybe even take a vote to see which version of me, the real me or the digital clone me, does a better job. We'll find out. So I'm going to go to questions. Many of you are nice enough to write in with questions every week in my newsletter. We put that out as an option. Avanish has written in with the following question: who are some historical or contemporary figures known for their charisma, and what can we learn from them? Okay, so Avanish, when I think of charisma, people always think of it's this special thing you can't put your finger on it. I can put my finger on it when it comes to famous political figures and people in pop culture. It's people who are good public speakers. Here's the challenge I have for you. Try to think of someone you think of as highly charismatic, but not a good public speaker. It's pretty hard to do that. Now think of someone who is perceived widely as a great public speaker. I'm talking about a prime minister, a president of a country, a well-known leader in the civic world. Think of someone who's known as a fantastic speaker who isn't also known as charismatic. Typically, those two are really the same thing, to the point where I think charisma is really just another word for being a good public speaker. Yes, there are exceptions. There may be someone in your school, your high school, your college, that everyone thinks, I want to be around that person. That person's popular. I like that person. It's not because they've ever stood up and given a speech. There's something else about them, whether they're good looks or charm or something, that's not directly related to publics. I'll grant you that. But when it comes to historical figures, well-known figures, to me, it's the same thing. In the United States, when you think of historical figures well known and respected, Abraham Lincoln, also known as a great speaker, Gettysburg Address, fantastic, well-known speech. John F. Kennedy was also known as a good speaker, although interestingly, he was considered an awful speaker when he was younger. Even as a young congressman, he learned how to be a better speaker. Ronald Reagan. Again, I'm not being partisan. I'm going to use examples from across the political spectrum. Ronald Reagan, considered a charismatic leader, also a great public speaker. I'll mention more current figures, but I don't want to get into political debates with people who want to differ with the ideology of a politician and can't separate the policies from their speaking skills. But I do think most fair-minded people who think that Ronald Reagan was a good speaker and charismatic would also say that Bill Clinton and Barack Obama were good speakers and charismatic, at least to the people who liked them. So we're not going to get into political debates today. Across the pond in the United Kingdom, Tony Blair was considered somewhat a fantastic public speaker. I realize his reputation has taken a hit in time since he left office for a number of reasons. We're not going to get into that, but certainly when he was in office, he was seen as a great speaker and as a charismatic leader. I'm going to give an example. I'm not going to go back to the 1930s. That's a little too troublesome. But here in my own hemisphere, Fidel Castro, and I'm not endorsing Castro. I'm not a Castro fan. I'm not endorsing communism. But Fidel Castro in his prime was considered an extraordinarily charismatic figure and a great speaker in his time. So that's how I would answer your question, Avanish. Let's pose the same question to our friend and co-host today, which is the TJ Walker digital clone. Those of you joining for the first time, what I'm talking about is I have cloned my brain. I have created a digital clone of myself, and I say I'm using a technology platform known as Delphi.ai, and I have ingested every book I've ever written, every video I've ever made for an online course, every video on my YouTube channel. So that has all been sort of sucked into my brain, my digital brain, so that you can now ask it questions and it answer more or less the same way I would. In some way, sometimes it's worse, but sometimes it's frankly better because my digital clone has a perfect memory. For this one, I'm going to let it have a longer response. Let's see what it can do. I want to see, does it have a better memory than I do? And what it pulls up for this question. So I'm going to ask my clone this question, and let's see what it comes up with. It'll take just a few seconds. It's taking a couple seconds, usually faster.
Hi, I'm TJ's clone. How may I help you communicate more effectively?
TJ, Avanish has a question for you. He wants to know, who are some historical or contemporary figures known for their charisma, and what can we learn from them?
Charisma is a powerful tool in communication, and many figures throughout history have mastered it. Let's start with Winston Churchill. His speeches during World War II, like, "We shall fight on the beaches," were not just words, they were rallying cries that inspired a nation. Churchill's charisma came from his ability to convey unwavering confidence and determination, even in the darkest times. Then there's Martin Luther King Jr. His "I Have a Dream" speech is a masterclass in charisma. King used vivid imagery and a rhythmic cadence to connect deeply with his audience, making them feel the urgency and righteousness of the civil rights movement. His charisma was rooted in his passion and his ability to articulate a vision of a better future. In the contemporary world, look at Oprah Winfrey. Her charisma lies in her authenticity and empathy. When she speaks, people feel like she genuinely cares about them. This ability to connect on a personal level has made her one of the most influential figures in media. From these examples, we learn that charisma isn't about being the loudest or most flamboyant person in the room. It's about connecting with your audience, conveying confidence, and speaking with passion and authenticity. Now, think about a situation where you need to be charismatic. What specific event or scenario comes to mind where you want to apply these lessons? Let's work on a strategy to make you shine in that moment.
Okay, so I'm human. I have a big ego. I, of course, like to think that I'm so special. I'm unique. I'm different. And no bunch of computer programmers can plug things in to be better than me. But I got to tell you, that answer was better than mine. The specific examples of Churchill and Martin Luther King and Oprah, I thought it was a better response than mine. What do you think? You can post your comments. Who won that question? Real TJ or digital TJ, TJ's clone? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm trying to be candid. There have been times where I thought my answer was better, but there are also times when I think the digital clone was better. So, clone, I'm going to ask you to listen to my response, critique it, and then I'm going to ask you to give your response if you can do that. This is a bit of a test. So I'm going to ask it on the next question. I'm going to give my response, and clone, do not speak until I've asked the question again and asked for your comments on how you would answer it, but also critiquing mine. So here's the next question. It's from Yuval Vadar, who writes, I'm a teen who wants to work into a promise project. I don't really know what that is, but I have a plan. However, I do not know what is the best way to present it. I would want to know, how do I encourage an idea in a persuasive yet crisp way so that there are no confusions? Okay, so Yuval, thank you so much for asking the question. Here's the thing: whether you're a teen, whether you're 5 years old, whether you're 80 years old, the things that work in communication are pretty consistent. The things that get people in trouble that don't work are also pretty consistent. The things that get people into trouble: too much detail, too many facts, speaking too quickly, speaking too softly, not giving eye contact and staring at a piece of paper or staring at bullet points. I'm going to give you the same advice I would give a CEO who's 45 years old, and that is, figure out first, what is it you want your audience to do? What is it you want them to do? Do you want them to support this new project with funding, with simply giving your permission? Whatever it is, figure out exactly what it is you want them to do. Then brainstorm on all the messages that might motivate them to do it. Narrow it down to no more than a handful. Could be just one or two. Now, make a compelling point. Use a story, use a vivid example to make that point come alive, and practice your presentation on video, watching it until you love every aspect of your style and your substance. So, Yuval, that is my critique for you. Now, back to TJ Klone. I want you to do two things for me. The first thing I want you to do is to just answer that question the best way you possibly could. Then I want you to analyze how I answered it, if you can do that. This is a test. I don't know if you can do that. So, Klone, here is the question. I am a teen who wants to work into a promise project. I have a plan. However, I do not know what is the best way to present it. I would want to know, how do I encourage an idea in a persuasive yet crisp way so there are no confusions? So, Digital Clone, start answering now.
Yuval, presenting your idea in a persuasive and crisp way is all about clarity and impact. Start by identifying the core message you want to convey. What is the one thing you want your audience to remember and act upon? Once you have that, build your presentation around it. Begin with a strong opening that grabs attention. This could be a compelling story, a surprising fact, or a powerful quote. Make sure it ties directly to your main message. Then structure your presentation with a clear beginning, middle, and end. Each part should flow logically into the next. Use simple, direct language. Avoid jargon and unnecessary details that might confuse your audience. Instead, focus on the benefits and the impact of your idea. Why should they care? How will it make a difference? Visual aids can be powerful, but use them sparingly. Each slide or visual should reinforce your message, not distract from it. Practice delivering your presentation multiple times. Record yourself, watch it back, and refine your delivery. Pay attention to your body language, eye contact, and voice modulation. Now let's analyze your response. You did a great job emphasizing the importance of clarity and avoiding common pitfalls like too much detail and lack of eye contact. Your advice to figure out what you want the audience to do and then craft messages to motivate them is spot on. However, I would suggest being more specific about how to structure the presentation and the importance of a strong opening to grab attention. Also, emphasizing the use of simple language and the impact of the idea could make your advice even more actionable. Yuval, try starting your presentation with a powerful story or fact that ties into your main message. Practice it on video and focus on clear, direct language. How does that sound for a start? What specific part of your presentation do you want to work on next?
Okay, so TJ Klone, that was pretty good. I got to tell you, I liked your answer. I thought your analysis of my answer was pretty fair. Rick, I'm interested. Rick has joined us. I'm interested in your opinion on that. I'll get to your comments in a moment. And TJ, I'm wondering, can you now compare and contrast your answer with my answer? Whose answer do you think was better, and make the case for one being better than the other?
All right, TJ, let's dive into this. Your answer was strong and practical, emphasizing the importance of clarity and avoiding common pitfalls. You gave actionable advice on figuring out what you want the audience to do and crafting messages to motivate them. This is a solid foundation for any presentation. Now, my answer focused on structuring the presentation with a clear beginning, middle, and end, and using a strong opening to grab attention. I also emphasized the use of simple, direct language and the impact of the idea. These elements are crucial for making a presentation persuasive and crisp. Comparing the two, your answer provided a broad overview and valuable tips on avoiding common mistakes. My answer, on the other hand, offered a more detailed structure and specific techniques to enhance clarity and engagement. Both approaches have their strengths. If I had to make a case for one being better, I'd argue that my answer might edge out slightly because it gives a more detailed roadmap for structuring the presentation and emphasizes the importance of a strong opening. This can be particularly helpful for someone like Yuval, who is looking for clear, actionable steps. However, your advice on focusing on what you want the audience to do and avoiding common pitfalls is equally important. It's not just about the structure, but also about the clarity of purpose and delivery. What specific part of your presentation do you want to work on next? Let's refine it together and make it even more impactful.
Okay, so TJ Clone, I thought that was a pretty good answer, and you were diplomatic, but not afraid to say why your answer was better. So I'm still experimenting with this. This is a whole new world. And those of you who saw our segment earlier today, the fascinating part is the clone's ability to now understand virtually every language and answer in that language. Now, it's doing it well in text. It's not doing it well in foreign languages yet. It's been sort of sometimes yes, sometimes no. We can test that later in a few minutes. I want to thank Rick for stopping by. Rick says, just got here, but it's what's great about Delphi clones. It's like a compilation of a person's greatest hits, all the best thoughts and feelings and ideas from any individual being cloned, and all indexed in an accessible way. Very helpful. So, Rick, I agree with you. One caveat, though, and that is people think of clones sometimes as like an old-time, old-fashioned jukebox you might see in a restaurant or a bar, where you want to hear the greatest hits from Casey and the Sunshine Band. That's A3. You put your quarter in, and it's playing the same thing that was recorded word for word, note by note, 40 years ago. That's really not what this clone is doing. What the clone is doing is taking every idea I've ever said in all my books, my videos, online courses, ingesting it, analyzing every single little token, and then looking at how words systematically go together to form sentences and ideas. So when it then hears or reads a question, it can, in fact, give a new answer that's tailored. So it's not simply pushing out a new recording. It is doing it in a way that is a new answer. It's a new video if it's in a video form. It's a new audio in the case of that audio. So that's one thing that I think is drastically superior to what a traditional sort of jukebox playing the greatest hits works. I see my colleague Ben has joined me. Ben, can you post the StreamYard links to? Oh, yeah, post the StreamYard link in case anyone wants to see it or join me on camera. Let's go to the next question. This one is from Fred. The question is how to gain confidence while speaking to an audience. Let me put a little twist on this. So we're going to ask the TJ clone to do this. So, TJ Clone, I want you to answer the question, how can someone gain confidence while speaking to audiences? And give me advanced tips. I don't want to just hear practice on video. People have heard you say that. I want to hear some really advanced tips. I'm going to let you go first this time. Then I'm going to answer it, see if I can answer better. I'm going to want you to critique your answer and my answer and see who's better. But this time, I'm going to have the advantage of hearing you go first. So let's start right now. TJ Clone, I want you to answer the question, how do you gain confidence while speaking to audiences?
Gaining confidence while speaking to an audience is a journey, and advanced tips can make a significant difference. Here are some strategies that go beyond the basics. First, immerse yourself in the environment where you'll be speaking. Visit the venue beforehand, stand on the stage, and visualize the audience. This familiarity reduces anxiety and makes the setting feel more comfortable. Second, use power poses before your speech. Stand tall, shoulders back, and take up space. This physical stance can boost your confidence levels by altering your body chemistry. Third, engage in deliberate practice with a focus on feedback. Work with a coach or a trusted colleague who can provide constructive criticism. Record these sessions and analyze your performance, focusing on areas for improvement. Fourth, develop a pre-speech ritual that calms your nerves and centers your mind. This could be deep breathing exercises, listening to a specific song, or even a short meditation. Consistency in this ritual can create a sense of control and readiness. Fifth, master the art of storytelling. Stories captivate audiences and make your message memorable. Practice weaving personal anecdotes into your presentations to create a connection with your listeners. Sixth, use visualization techniques. Picture yourself delivering a flawless presentation, receiving applause, and engaging with the audience. This mental rehearsal can significantly boost your confidence. Seventh, focus on your audience rather than yourself. Shift your mindset from "how am I doing" to "how can I serve my audience?" This outward focus can reduce self-consciousness and enhance your delivery. Eighth, embrace the power of silence. Pausing strategically can emphasize key points and give you a moment to collect your thoughts. It also shows confidence and control. Ninth, continuously expand your knowledge on the topic you're presenting. The more you know, the more confident you'll feel. This depth of understanding allows you to handle questions and discussions with ease. Finally, engage in regular physical exercise. Physical fitness can improve your overall well-being and reduce stress, which translates to greater confidence on stage. Now, TJ, let's hear your take on this. How would you answer Fred's question, and what advanced tips would you add? Let's compare and refine our approaches to help Fred gain that confidence.
Okay, TJ Clone, that was a pretty good response. And I can already tell you one thing I can't do is number things in real time. I think you gave 1 through 9 or 1 through 10. That was good stuff. I'm not going to kid you. And my brain doesn't function in that well organized way. That is the beauty of the artificial intelligence, being able to instantly process information. So I'm going to take a stab at this answer starting now. So, how do you gain more confidence when speaking to audiences and really use advanced tips? The single biggest thing you can do to truly gain confidence is to test your speech in advance. I don't mean simply practice on video until you like it. Of course, you should do that. That's basic. But what you really want to do is have empirical evidence that your presentation is great. And the way to do that is quite simple. No one ever does it, but it's very simple, costs nothing. Here's what you do. You practice your speech on video again and again and again until you love what you see. You love the style and the substance. Now what you do is you send that video to several people who are either going to be in your actual audience or have a mindset that's very similar. So if you're giving an investment pitch to an investor conference and the audience is going to be several hundred angel investors, try to find 2 or 3 angel investors who already know you, already like you, respect you, and are willing to help you. Send your video to them and then call them up or email them and say, what do you remember? Don't ask them, what'd you think? They're going to say, oh, well, you did a good job. You really came across comfortable and confident, TJ. Nice job. That is completely meaningless advice. What you really want to know is, what did your audience remember? If they tell you something like, well, TJ, what I really took away was your digital clone is so groundbreaking. It breaks through all barriers. It's going to allow you and anyone else to communicate with 8 billion people instantly. And I see the revenue model where it's going to do this, this, and this, and it made me want to take out my wallet and invest. If that's the message I wanted to hear, and now my sample audience, my focus group audience, is actually telling me the specific messages that I wanted to convey, the story I wanted to convey. If they're remembering my story, if they're remembering my message, and they're telling me they were thinking about taking the action I want, that is the ultimate test of a presentation. If you hear that from someone, it's virtually impossible not to be completely filled with confidence when you're going in to give the real speech. Most people are afraid to do this. Or if they do it, they don't actually share it with people and ask the important question. The important question, again, is not what you think. People say just generic, positive feedback. Oh, you look good and comfortable. You'll do fine. People want to be positive and upbeat. Completely worthless. What you really want to know is, what did they remember? You don't get that unless you've sent them the video or you've spoken to them in person live, or you also have to ask them that specific question of, what do you remember? People can lie about whether they thought you did a good job. They can't really lie telling you they remember key parts of your speech if they didn't remember it. So that is what's truly valuable. Doing that one single thing, single most important thing you can do to gain confidence before giving a speech. Okay, I've finished my answer. Now, TJ, I want you to analyze my answer, compare and contrast that with your answer, starting now.
All right, TJ, let's break this down. Your answer was insightful and practical, focusing on the importance of empirical evidence and feedback from a sample audience. You emphasized the value of knowing what your audience remembers, which is a powerful way to gauge the effectiveness of your presentation. This approach is indeed a game changer for building confidence. Now, comparing it to my answer, I provided a broader range of advanced tips, including power poses, visualization techniques, and the use of storytelling. These elements are designed to enhance not just the content, but also the delivery and overall presence of the speaker. Your answer zeroed in on one crucial aspect: feedback from a relevant audience. This is incredibly valuable because it provides concrete evidence of how well your message is being received. My answer, on the other hand, offered a more holistic approach, covering various techniques to boost confidence from different angles. If I had to choose, I'd say your answer is excellent for someone who needs a clear, actionable step to validate their presentation. My answer might be better for someone looking for a comprehensive strategy to enhance their overall confidence and delivery. Both approaches have their merits. The key takeaway here is that combining these strategies can provide a robust framework for gaining confidence. You can start with my broader tips to build a strong foundation, and then use your method to fine tune and validate your presentation. What specific part of your presentation
So
do you want to
TJ,
refine
hang on a
next?
minute. So
Let's work on making it even more.
Here's my analysis. I thought my answer was better. Now, I think I'm being fair. I thought your answer was better in the first one. But what I'm trying to do in real life when I'm coaching people and training people, and what I'm trying to do through you and the digital clone, is to provide a coaching experience that's truly transformational. not simply provide more information and lecture. Yes, yours was more comprehensive, but telling people to have a power pose, I just think wastes time. I've seen people stand up, say, "I give the power pose," and then, yeah, they had good posture, they felt confident, but their speech was boring and unmemorable. So I actually don't see the value of having more confidence if you're going to give a boring, unmemorable speech. I actually think it's better off not being confident in that situation to make it better. So I thought that some of your advice was too much of a tangent. I also just think that when you're coaching someone, which is what I've tried to program you to do, you're better off getting people to focus on one thing at a time rather than trying to do 5 or 6 things at a time. Now, in your defense, I've programmed you to give a longer answer. It may be that if I programmed it to give a shorter answer, you would have focused on that. So, how can I program you to be more of a coach instead of a lecturer? Because I'm hearing in some of your answers, you're giving me, 5, 6, sometimes 10 specific items. It's good for a lecture, but it's not really what I think of as a coaching experience. Please respond.
I hear you, TJ. The goal is to create a truly transformational coaching experience, not just to provide a lecture. To achieve that, we need to focus on one actionable item at a time, ensuring that each step is clear and impactful. Let's refine the approach. Instead of listing multiple tips, I'll zero in on one key strategy that can make a significant difference. For instance, when building confidence, the single most powerful technique is to practice in front of a camera and get feedback from a relevant audience. This method provides concrete evidence of what works and what doesn't, allowing for targeted improvements. By concentrating on one technique at a time, we can ensure that the advice is not only practical, but also immediately applicable. This approach will help users build their skills incrementally, leading to more profound and lasting improvements. Now, let's put this into practice. What's
So time
one
out a minute.
specific
Time out.
aspect of your presentation or
I like
communication?
that. I like that answer better. My question, and I don't know, I don't know if you can answer this, but since I'm the actual owner of the clone, I am the real TJ Walker. How can I get you to do that on a regular basis? Do I need to write that into your purpose in the design of this clone? Do I need to put that in a special rule? What is the best way to make you do what you just did, which is to focus on one big thing and go deep rather than being expansive and giving a broad, big picture answer to questions?
To ensure I consistently focus on one big thing and go deep, you might consider refining my purpose and design parameters. Emphasize the importance of delivering concise, impactful coaching moments rather than broad, expansive answers. You could specify that I should prioritize depth over breadth in my responses, ensuring each piece of advice is actionable and immediately applicable. This adjustment will help me provide a more tailored and transformational coaching experience, aligning with your vision of effective communication training. What specific aspect of your coaching approach would you like me to refine next? Let's make it even more effective together.
Okay, we're going to go to another question in a moment. Rick points out, he says it can be a little distracting. LOL. I feel like focusing on looking cool takes away from the emotions that I'm genuinely feeling and hoping to convey. So Rick, I don't really know what you mean there. Are you talking about my suggestion that you practice your presentation on video? I'm not quite understand. And Rick, if you don't have to, but if you wanted to hit the StreamYard link and come talk to us, you could. But if you're at work or doing something else, I understand. Rick says, I'm naturally very expressive person, so I find that works best for me. I'm talking about the power posing subject. Okay. Yeah, I think the power, so let's back up a minute. Amy Cuddy was a lecturer at Harvard Business School, and she became famous giving a TED Talk that went on to be, I think, the third most popular TED Talk of all time, certainly one of the top 10. Tens and tens of millions of people watching it, where she says, if you just stand for 5 seconds like Wonder Woman with, you know, hands on hips, feet wide, chest out, it will fill you with confidence and you'll be better speaker, better at everything. It has since been replicated in other studies and found not to be effective. I thought it was a complete waste of time and a perfect example of, frankly, everything that's wrong about TED Talks, because it focused on a gimmick. If you actually looked at her speech, it was a great speech because she did the things that I talk about and every, I think, great speech instructor talks about, which is she used emotion. She told stories. She rehearsed. She moved. She wasn't reading from a script or a PowerPoint. And yet, if you give us a TED Talk talking about those things, you're not going to get 53 million views. You'll probably have 53 views because people don't want to hear that. That's the spinach. They'd much rather hear the gimmick of, oh, this one quick trick. It's like a gimmick. It's like a spammy headline on the internet. Learn this one quick trick to lose 80 pounds while eating chocolate cake. It's kind of clickbait. And that's kind of my feeling about Amy Cuddy's TED Talk. It was clickbait. Oh, I don't have to practice my speech or rehearse it on video or have good stories or examples. I can just stand like this and I'll be great. Well, no, that's not what made it work. Okay, so Rick, sorry, I get worked up hearing about the power pose. So I'm a little less than comfortable hearing my clone talk about that. We're going to switch to the next question. And Rick, if you have a question that you'd like me or my clone to address, let me know. We're going to go to the next question. This one comes from Yoki Lim, who says, I have a low, gruff voice that may sound monotonous to the listener. What can I do to address that? I'm going to ask my clone to address that first. And I see we're at 30 minutes with the clone. Sometimes it cuts off after. So this will be a test to see if we can go longer than 30 minutes. So TJ Clone, please answer this question from Yoki Lim. And it's, I have a low, gruff voice that may sound monotonous to the listener. What can I do to address that?
Yoki, having a low, gruff voice can be a unique asset, but it's essential to keep your audience engaged. Here are some strategies to make your voice more dynamic and captivating. First, focus on varying your pitch and tone. Even subtle changes can make a big difference. Practice speaking with more highs and lows to avoid sounding monotonous. Record yourself and listen back to identify areas where you can add more variation. Next, work on your pacing. Speaking at a consistent speed can lull listeners into a trance. Instead, mix it up. Slow down for emphasis on key points and speed up to convey excitement or urgency. This keeps your audience on their toes and more engaged. Another powerful technique is to incorporate pauses. Strategic pauses can add drama and give your listeners time to absorb what you've said. It also gives you a moment to breathe and think about your next point. Additionally, focus on your articulation. Clear, crisp pronunciation can make your speech more engaging. Practice enunciating each word fully, especially if you tend to mumble or rush through sentences. Finally, consider the content of your speech. Use vivid language and storytelling to paint pictures in your listeners' minds. When your content is compelling, your voice will naturally become more engaging. Let's start with one tip. Practice varying your pitch and tone. Record a short segment of your speech, listen to it, and identify where you can add more variation. How did that feel? What changes did you notice in your delivery?
Okay, so not a bad answer, TJ. I'm going to give you my answer to the same question. Again, the question is, I have a low, gruff voice that may sound monotonous to the listener. What can I do to address that? That's from Yoki. So what I want to do, Yoki, is really zoom in on one thing. You said it may sound monotonous. That tells me you're not actually listening to it. So the first big piece of advice I have for you is you have to record how you sound. So video record how you sound when you're practicing your speech. When you're giving a real speech, hit the memo record on your cell phone, just throw it down at the table somewhere in the room and listen to it later. All great comedians do this. So a couple of things. You may find out that you're not monotonous. Now, chances are you are, because it is a common problem. And if you feel that you're monotonous, there is a good chance it happens. But you need to know exactly how you sound. Typically, someone is monotonous because they're a little nervous and a little tense. And when they're monotonous, they're thinking about what am I going to say next? And they start speaking at the same speed, or maybe they're reading and they're freezing up and they're focused on what am I going to say 5 seconds from now, whether it is remembering or reading. And that's what makes you monotonous and monotone. And that's a big, big problem. So part of it is you have to build a comfort level with what you're talking about. You have to get off script. And if you're using PowerPoint, fine, don't put words on the PowerPoint. Have a script that is no more than a simple outline with 2 or 3 words, because you need to be able to glance at a paper outline and know what you want to say and just share it. I don't even memorize it. I mean, just talk about it. A couple of words to remind you of the story. That will bring you to life. So much of what makes someone monotonous is the way they have written their speech or structured their PowerPoint is it's a boring data dump. Well, it's really hard for anyone, no matter how good their voice is, not to sound monotone and monotonous if they're going through a boring data dump. So the real problem might be that you're trying to convey way too many facts and messages, and you're not illustrating every key point with a story. When you're telling a story and you're voicing the part of different characters and you're bringing in dialogue, it's virtually impossible to sound monotone and to be monotonous. So I want you to focus on that. The next thing is, once you've restructured your presentation to narrow your message down to a handful, to have an interesting story for each one, I want you to practice it, listen to it, get other people to listen to it. If you still feel like you're too monotonous and too monotone, I want you to do it again. Overdo it. I want you to be overly dramatic. I want you to say, well, that was way over the top. Be silly. Because if you get it too high, you can always ratchet it back and to make it sound more professional and even keeled. But if you're too monotone, when you start a speech, you'll stay that way. So that is what I want you to do, Yoki, to solve this problem of being monotone. Okay. And now I did go too long with my clone, and it just cut off. So we're not going to hear my analysis from the clone. I got to tell you, I think my answer was a lot better. Those of you just joining me can say, well, TJ seems very full of himself. Well, I think the clone did a better job on the first answer. I thought the second one, I liked mine a little better, but there were pros and cons to both. But I think my answer for the third one was better. We've had more comments coming in from Rick talking about the power pose, the Amy Cuddy TED Talk. He says exactly what I thought. The way she told her speech is a much more useful lesson than the actual content of her speech. Yeah, that was my point as well. If you actually look at how Amy Cuddy delivered her presentation, it was fantastic. The content, not really. She also didn't shy away from utilizing girl power cliches. Girls can be tough too by standing up. Standing like a 1950s depiction of a Superman. Okay. And the power pose is like the Superman or the Wonder Woman pose, I guess you would say. Okay, I can drop it for now for all the power pose talk. I love the last answer, though. Well, Rick, thanks so much. I do appreciate that. Appreciate your thoughts. So that was the question for Yoki. So let me tell you what I'm doing here. Now, for those of you just joining me, if you're watching this on demand, I'm doing sort of the painstaking job of learning how these clones actually work. It is a new medium. I'm trying it on for size, experimenting, seeing what works, what doesn't work. Anytime there's a whole new medium, people don't really know what to do with it. The very first YouTube channel was just, one of the founders walking through a zoo pointing out some things, and it was 17 seconds. That's not what most people do on YouTube today. The very first movies were just a video camera on a tripod or standing on a box pointed at a play. The concept of a movie being different a play hadn't occurred to anyone. So I'm trying to figure out, test, try on, stretch it out, see what these clones can do. So what I'm taking away from this is I've got to rewrite the purpose of my clone to tell it, go deep, focus on one really powerful suggestion, go deep in that, rather than being expansive and listing 10 different items covering everything. Now, when I say purpose, let me share with you what I'm talking about. And again, I'm using the platform Delphi.ai. I'm not an investor. I'm not an owner. I'm not an affiliate at this point, although I might be at some point. When you're creating an instance, you have one general clone where you put all the information in. You can then have different versions of your clone that try to guide people through different experiences and say different things. So we've been in my communications clone, for example. So my communicate, and it has its own URL. When someone hits that clone, they'll hear a specific message that says, "Hi, I'm TJ's clone. How may I help you communicate more effectively today?" That's a different message than what my personal development, my life coaching clone says. You're allowed to give it custom instructions here. So this is probably where I should be more explicit about give people one specific action item at a time. Do not go broad, go deep. Don't give 10 possible suggestions. Focus on the one tip that is going to help the person make the most dramatic improvement. I initially thought I should change my purpose. Oh, so here's the purpose here. So this, again, every program, every platform is a little bit different. The Delphi program, they've got a studio. I can define the purpose here, but I can also give it custom instructions. So my initial thought is I should put in the purpose what the clone suggested. Tell it not to go broad and wide, but to go narrow and deep and focus on one actionable item. Maybe I'll experiment and put it in both the purpose and the custom instructions. So that, to me, was worth the hour we spent here together talking this out, because it didn't occur to me naturally. In the same way, the people who started making movies, and it was Thomas Edison who created the technology, they just didn't know what you could do with movies. So they started off doing with what they were familiar with, which is just putting a camera in front of a play. It took a while of experimenting and playing and figuring out what people like and don't like. And forgive me, I don't know the timeline of how long it really took before movies started to look like movies and not just plays, but it wasn't the first day. These digital clones are new. They're different. They are not something people are familiar with because it is brand new. I'm trying to learn. I have not figured it all out, that's for sure, but I'm trying. I'm here in the trenches, experimenting on a daily basis. And that's what, in some level, is fun and fascinating and interesting. So as soon as we're done here, I'm going to try to rewrite some of the the purpose of my clones to be even more specific, based on the advice my own clone gave me. So there's this back and forth. It's a dialectical process. It's about iteration. And I realize a lot of these things are buzzwords and jargon. Time will tell if this is being turned into something meaningful. Because let's face it, there are a lot of new technologies that pop up. Everyone's excited. 6 months later, no one ever thought about it again. You could make that case about the Clubhouse app where Elon Musk was in it and Mark Zuckerberg was in it. And it was this Clubhouse where people could get in and talk in an audio format. And it was going to be the next big thing. And all the top tier venture capital firms were plowing in millions and tens of millions, hundreds of millions into these audio platforms. And then poof, like, does anyone even remember it now? So there are certain fads. Here's what I don't think is a fad. I think if you can enable someone with the power of having a one-on-one conversation with anyone in the world, in any language, at any time of day or night, in any continent, in any country, and it's personalized to what that person wants to talk about, not what the YouTube guy wants to talk about, but what the individual on the other end of the screen, on the other end of the keyboard or the microphone, what they want to talk about, that's never been done before. This is not like TikTok saying, okay, we're going to be like YouTube, but a little shorter, a little better. This is not just something that's a slight tweak on a different way of doing things. You know, there was Tumblr and there were blogs, and Twitter said, well, we're going to be like that, but we're going to tweak it and initially limit it to 140 characters. I'm not belittling Twitter. They did something. They created a huge institution and a huge cultural force. But in my view, this potential of digital clones is profoundly different, profoundly, potentially bigger, because it is enabling one-on-one, live, interactive conversation that is no different than a Zoom call once the video part gets into the element. We already have the audio. And soon, I don't know how soon, but soon we are going to have the video element as well, where you can look right at someone. In theory, it could be Anthony Robbins if he creates one. It could be Brendan Bouchard if you like him. And I do know that he's coming out with one very quickly because he's one of the investors and one of the big shots involved with Delphi.ai. So if you like going to one of Brendan's speeches, seminars, events, workshops, or you like watching his YouTube channel, presumably you're going to like it even more being able to talk to his clone and have him address you by name and talk about your concerns. So I can't imagine that isn't going to be extraordinarily popular and useful to a lot of people. So quick heads up, what I've done just yesterday is I've sort of reorganized my own versions of my clone. So I have one main version of my clone. I have one that's just for supported information if someone comes to my website and wants to ask about, how do I hire you for a workshop or seminar? I have one that is a brand new one. It's a job interview coach. So there are a lot of people in the world who think, I don't care about presentations, or I don't give PowerPoints, or I don't really care. I'm a mid-level manager, or I'm a stock analyst. I don't ever have to talk to anyone. But everybody has to go on a job interview from time to time. And if you're self-employed, you essentially go on a job interview every day when you're talking to a client prospect. So I've created one clone that is just for helping people with job interviews. I'm very excited about that. That's a new one. You'll be able to see these very soon. We don't have the site in its final form yet, but tjwalker.ai is where we're going to house all of these clones. So the site is up, but it's still a work in progress. I don't believe we even have that one linked to yet. So one is the communication skills coach. That is what I'm mostly known for and what I've spent most of my career helping people with is their communication skills. Life coach, that is sort of the umbrella term for all the different ways I help people with personal development skills, whether it's habit formation, goal setting, time management. It's all going to be looked at through this lens, this instant of the life coach. There's the media training one, that's the fifth one. And that's very focused and specific to helping people improve their media skills. So let's just hop right into, we're going to go to the general one and see how that answers it. So we're going to go to the main. I don't see the button there. So I'm going to go to the communication skills one. And we're going to ask it a few more questions and test things out. I also want to see, can the clone answer questions where I don't even know the answer to? So we're going to test that for a minute. So we're going to call the clone. For some reason it says I'm signed out. I don't know why that would be, but we're going to sign in. Let's try again. Well, I thought I'd signed in. Let me make sure we don't have too many pages open. Now it's going to it. And it's taking a second. Sometimes it's a little finicky, although it's faster than I am about a lot of things. Certainly its answers, once it gets going, is very, very fast. It says it's not responding. So I'm going to try to hit cancel. I may have shame on me. I may have too many different web browsers open and too many different pages opening. So quick note, let's make it a learning moment. Anytime you're doing a presentation live on Zoom or YouTube or social media, it's best to close every single window down. That's always the best thing. And we've got ZMI saying hello, stopping by, says hello. We have Andrew joining us. And Andrew, I see you've joined us in StreamYard. If you'd like to come on and say hello and share your thoughts on anything, we'd love to have you. Right now, I see that your devices are not connected. So if you would like to connect, you can do so. You're also welcome just to hang out in the green room. But if you have a question, let me know. And ZMI, if you have a question, let me know as well. So let's try the clone again, see if we can connect and ask it a question. Oh, but before
Hi, I'm TJ.
I do see that Andrew has joined us. So let's
defended ourselves. And if that requires for us to get stabbed, it happens.
So this is someone who's posted a video. I'm happy if you want to come on and ask us to critique a video. I'm more than happy to have you do that. But I don't want you to just come on and just have a video automatically playing. And you may be a fan of a well-known influencer, try to get extra visibility. I'm not opposed to that. But what I would ask is that you first come on and tell us what the goal is, ask us to look at a video, and I'm happy to do that. So let's try the clone again and see if we can probe more details of how this works. So TJ, I am trying to learn more about how to use my digital clone, and you are my digital clone. I've noticed sometimes that when I ask you a question in a foreign language, like Spanish, for example, you will answer in Spanish, and it sounds great. I've noticed other times I have to ask you a question in a foreign language 2 or 3 times, and then you convert from English to answering me in Spanish. Other times I've asked you a question in a foreign language, and you just keep speaking in English. So can you enlighten me as to what your powers are of communicating in foreign languages? Because it appears you're great. If someone posts a text question in a foreign language, you can answer it in a foreign language beautifully in a text format. But can you tell me more about what your capabilities are in terms of audio and someone asking questions in an audio format in a foreign language? Well, back to the audio. I am fascinated by the ability to communicate with people in every language in the world. I'm very excited about that. Can you give me any timeline of how you're improving or how fast it is? At what point will it be as seamless as what I have seen on the recent demonstration of ChatGPT-4o? So that is exciting to me. There's no doubt about it. Forgive me, I hit stop and you wouldn't have heard that last audio. We're going to go to another question. This one is from Hogue Tanvir. We're going to ask this question. I need to share my screen again so that you can hear the clone's answer as well. So I'm going to hit share and we'll go to share and we'll take equal billing. So I'm going to ask my clone this question and see how it does. We'll reconnect and start again.
Hi, I'm TJ's clone. How may I help you communicate more effectively?
So TJ Clone, I want you to answer this question from Hogue Tanberg. Hogue says, I'm a shy person. How is it possible for me to be a good speaker? Let's hear your answer.
Being a good speaker, even if you're shy, is absolutely within your reach. The key is to start with small, manageable steps. Begin by practicing by recording yourself on video and then watching yourself. This helps you get comfortable with your own voice and presence. Next, focus on your message. When you're passionate about what you're saying, it becomes easier to convey that enthusiasm to your audience. Remember, preparation is your best friend. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Another powerful technique is to engage in conversations with friends or family about topics you're interested in. This builds your confidence in a low pressure environment. Also, consider joining a group like Toastmasters, where you can practice public speaking in a supportive setting. Finally, visualize success. Picture yourself speaking confidently and receiving positive feedback. This mental rehearsal can significantly boost your confidence. What specific aspect of public speaking do you find most challenging? And how would you like me to help you overcome it?
Okay, so a pretty good answer. It's another reminder to me that I have to reprogram my clone and tell it, do not be expansive, don't go wide, go deep. Figure out what's one specific practical tip you can get the user to focus on. Give them every available tool to do that. Ask them to do that one thing. Because that answer, again, was sort of very expansive. Fine for a lecture, but what I'm trying to do with this clone is recreate the experience of a one-on-one coaching session and not just a different format for delivering lectures, because we already have that. I've already got 200 plus online video-based courses, some of them 30 hours long. I already have 3,500 video lectures on YouTube. I don't think people want more lectures. I think they do want a live coaching experience, and one that can be done in their language any time of day or night, and 1/100th the price of a live coaching session, or even less expensive. I think that's what they want. That's what I'm trying to create. Let's go to the next question. And I'm not sure what the answer is to this. This question is coming from Don. It says, I'd love to be able to ask questions more and speak more, but I'm deaf. I've tried using closed caption features. What advice do you have to me as a deaf person for participating more in meetings and opportunities where I can speak and ask questions?
Don, let's focus on one specific practical tip to help you participate more in meetings. Use a speech-to-text app on your phone or computer. This will allow you to follow the conversation in real time and respond more effectively. Practice using this tool in a low-pressure environment, like a casual conversation with a friend or family member. This will help you get comfortable with the technology and build your confidence. Now try using a speech-to-text app in your next meeting and let me know how it goes. What is your ultimate goal as a communicator, and how would you like me to help you get there?
I got to tell you, I thought that was a pretty good answer. That was a better answer than I would have come up, because I was initially flummoxed. Now, what I can't remember, because again, I'm a human being, and human beings all have fallible memories. I'm not just talking about old people. All human beings have fallible memories. I can't remember if I've ever talked about using a speech-to-text memo application on a phone to help someone who is deaf, who can then read it. I do remember back in the days when a very famous American talk show host, who's no longer alive, Rush Limbaugh, was losing his hearing. He was using that to figure out what the callers were talking about. So he would have whatever the caller said instantly turn into a transcription, which he could read, and then he could respond. So it's possible. It's in some earlier YouTube videos, I talked about that and why that could be a good solution for someone who is deaf or hard of hearing. But I can't remember now. So and I thought the advice was very, very solid. So I give credit to the clone. The clone's winning again on that one. I think we are about at the end of questions that we have talked about, or that have been sent in advance. I'm going to see if the clone can sort of think on its feet. And again, I'm using the word thinking. Clones are not actually thinking. It's not actually a person, doesn't actually have feelings. It is a computer program. So clone, here's my challenge to you. I want you to synthesize what you think are the most common questions that you get asked. If you're able to access all the questions since you have been around for the last 2 months, and I want you to give me as long a possible summary of insights you have that you think answer the most common questions people ask the TJ Walker clone. Talk as long as you can, possibly even for 5 minutes, starting now.
The most common questions I get asked revolve around improving public speaking skills, overcoming shyness, and mastering the art of communication in various settings. Let's dive into some key insights. First, many people ask how to become a confident public speaker. The foundation of confidence is preparation. Record yourself on video, watch it, and critique your performance. This helps you become comfortable with your voice and presence. Practice is your best friend. The more you rehearse, the more natural and confident you'll feel. Focus on your message. When you're passionate about your topic, it shows, and your audience will feel that energy. Another frequent question is how to overcome shyness. Start small, engage in conversations with friends or family about topics you enjoy. This builds your confidence in a low-pressure environment. Visualization is also powerful. Picture yourself speaking confidently.
Whoops, what happened, clone? I'm not hearing you. That was a bit abrupt. Clone, are you still with me? Okay, folks, so technology, I mean, I'm not a perfect speaker, but I very rarely just stop mid-sentence and walk off the stage. So not quite sure what happened there, but this has been a fascinating experience to me. I realize it's not generating tens of hundreds of millions of views like a Mr. Beast video. What we're doing here is a workshop. I am rolling up my sleeves metaphorically, showing you the actual act of creating a digital clone and the journey of how one person who is a subject matter expert is trying to create a clone, shape it, mold it, test it, tweak it, iterate it, although I can't stand when people use iterate as a verb, and making this clone meaningful and helpful to people. I do think this is an extraordinarily powerful communication tool if it continues to evolve in the way I see it evolving. So if you're watching this on June 27th, 2024, which is today, live, you may hear some of the things I'm about to predict is fantasy. If you're watching this in 2 months, you may be thinking, well, what's he talking about? That's obvious. Everyone's doing that. That's commonplace. Okay, what I'm predicting is that in the very near future, a lot of authors, experts, speakers, trainers, CEOs, founders are going to have a digital clone of themselves. It's not just going to text back answers. It's not just going to play up a video of some script that was written a year or two ago. It's not just going to be an audio like an AT&T operator where you're in endless voicemail loops. It's going to seem like an actual live Zoom call with that person. The difference being you could do it any time of day or night from any continent in any language. And you're not going to have to pay the full freight of the time of the expert you're talking to, because that expert's not going to be there. They are going to be off sleeping if it's a different time zone or doing other things, but you're going to be able to access their brain in a way that may be as good as having a live conversation. It might not be as good sometimes, but it might actually be better, as we've seen today, because the clone can access everything you've ever written or said or talked about, whereas human beings forget. So that is what I'm predicting. And I'm hoping at some point there will be comments under here saying, duh, that's obvious. We all knew that was coming. Well, it's not obvious right now because not many people are focusing on this. I'm hoping to get in on the ground floor, and I'm hoping you will come with me. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm TJ Walker. Please come back to this channel later today. There's more videos on communication posted every single day, 3 videos a day, 7 days a week.